Hey, you know how you're always hearing about the latest buzz online? Well, this one. It's got a rapper, whole lot of fighting, and yeah, what some people are actually calling a curse.
Ah, you must be talking about Drake.
We are diving right into Drake's newest high-stakes bet, this time on UFC 314.
Drake, yeah, the multi-Grammy winner. It feels like his betting slips get almost as much press as his music these days.
That's exactly it. He's become almost as famous for, throwing down serious money on sports as he is for his tracks. And that's where it gets really interesting for us, because it brings us to this whole phenomenon of the Drake curse. You've definitely heard about it, right?
Oh, yeah. The idea that, well, any athlete or any team he publicly gets behind just seems to take an L.
Yeah.
It's become quite the narrative online.
Okay, so let's look at some examples, because there are quite a few where this so-called curse seems to have popped up. Think back to earlier this year, UFC 297.
Okay.
Drake puts down a massive, $700,000 on Sean Strickland to win. Strickland. He ended up losing to Dricus du Plessis. Coincidence? Maybe. But then, fast forward just a bit to UFC 293.
And another big bet.
Another huge one, $500,000 this time, on Israel Adesanya, who then loses to Sean Strickland.
Oh, wow. The irony there. That's something else.
You can't make it up.
Well, what's kind of fascinating when you look at this is how quickly these stories take hold. I mean, Drake's a global superstar, right? So his endorsements, his bets, they're super visible.
Totally.
So when a loss follows, it's just really easy for people to connect those dots, even if, it's just pure chance.
And it's not just sticking to the UFC octagon either. Remember Jake Paul's boxing match against Tommy Fury?
I do.
Drake backed Paul with a cool $1.2 million. He was betting on a knockout specifically.
And Paul lost that one by split decision, I think.
Exactly. Lost by split decision. So the Drake curse seemed to just hop right over into the boxing ring.
The fact that it appears across different sports, that really adds to the whole folklore, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes the idea feel almost inescapable.
Oh, it gets even wider. Let's go back a bit further. UFC 229. Conor McGregor versus Khabib. Huge fight.
Legendary fight.
And there's Drake, front and center, draped in the Irish flag, bigging up McGregor.
Right, I remember seeing the pictures.
And McGregor, well, he got submitted. Then switch back to boxing Anthony Joshua. He poses for a picture with Drake right before his massive fight against Andy Ruiz Jr.
A fight Joshua was heavily favored to win.
Heavily favored, and he ends up getting TKO'd after being knocked down multiple times. I mean, you can see why this curse thing has legs.
Yeah, those visuals, the photos, the social media posts, they're incredibly powerful, aren't they? They create this really memorable link in people's heads between Drake showing support and then, bam, a loss. It's like a very modern take on old sports superstitions.
It's wild. And look, even college football isn't safe. Remember back in 2019, Drake was seen wearing Alabama Crimson Tide gear?
Oh yeah, the powerhouse Alabama team.
The very same. And then Clemson just absolutely demolished them 44-16 in the national championship. That's a pretty emphatic loss.
That example with Alabama is interesting because it's a whole team, a really dominant program, not just one fighter.
Exactly. And let's not forget Drake's specific track record with UFC bets lately. He put down $275,000 on Jorge Masvidal to beat Colby Covington.
Masvidal lost that one quite decisively.
He did. Then just a few months later, $400,000 on Justin Gaethje against Charles Oliveira.
Gaethje got submitted, right? First round
Submission. It's just been a rough go for his betting account when it comes to the UFC. And get this, reports say that so far this year alone, Drake is already down about $115,000 on his bets.
Wow. Which really, really puts this latest wager under a massive microscope, doesn't it? I mean, the stakes are already high with over $500,000 on the line.
Right.
And then you layer this whole curse narrative right on top of it.
Exactly. So what's the latest chapter in this saga? Drake just dropped a huge bet, $545,000 on Alexander Volkanovski to win his fight against Diego Lopes at UFC 314.
That is a significant chunk of change. Wow. You must have some serious faith in Volkanovski pulling this off.
Well, the internet, as you can probably guess, just went absolutely nuts when this bet became public knowledge.
Oh, I bet.
The jokes were flying instantly, people saying stuff like, R.I.P. Volk's chances, or, okay, Drake has spoken, Lopes by KO it is. The Drake curse machine is definitely fired up and running again.
And the speed and just the sheer volume of that reaction on social media, it just shows how deeply this whole idea has dug itself into the sports conversation.
Yeah.
It's almost like part of the pre-fight buildup now.
Yeah, it really is. No, just for folks who maybe aren't huge UFC followers, UFC 314 actually has a really exciting main card lined up.
It looks pretty stacked.
Yeah, headlining is the featherweight title fight. We're talking about the champ, Alexander Volkanovski, taking on the challenger, Diego Lopes. That's a huge fight for the division.
Definitely.
But we've also got some other really fun matchups. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. That one's got a ton of buzz, right? Their styles, their personality.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fireworks.
Then you've got Uriel Rodriguez taking on Patricio Pitbull, Bryce Mitchell against Sean Silva, and Nikita Krylov facing Dominic Reyes. So plenty of action to watch.
It's a solid card, absolutely. And that Volkanovski-Lopes fight. It's super compelling, even without the whole Drake angle, you know. Volk's a legendary champ, but Lopes has looked really dangerous lately.
And here's the thing. Despite all this Drake curse chatter swirling around, the odds makers, they still have Volkanovski as a slight favorite going into this fight. So the people whose job it is to crunch the numbers, they still believe in him.
That's a really important counterpoint because, you know, while the Drake curse makes for a great story, a fun narrative, the betting markets themselves, they're generally driven by much more objective stuff, fighter skills, recent form, how they match up stylistically.
True, true. However, there are definitely some legitimate question marks around Volkanovski right now. He's 36, which, you know, in MMA years, especially at the lighter weights.
He's getting up there, the mileage starts to count.
Exactly. Plus, he is coming off those two recent losses. First to Islam Makhachev, then that pretty brutal knockout by Ilia Topuria. You have to wonder, have those fights taken a toll? Is he maybe a bit more vulnerable now?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or, I guess, the $545,000 question in this case.
Yep.
Can Lopes exploit any potential weaknesses that maybe were revealed in those last couple of high-profile losses? Volk is incredibly skilled, technically brilliant, but nobody's invincible, especially after some tough defeats like that.
So yeah, that boils it all down to the big question for everyone watching.
Right.
Will Alexander Volkanovski manage to defy the infamous Drake curse? Can he shake off this weird celebrity jinx baggage and actually get the win against a dangerous Diego Lopes? Or are we about to witness another name get added to that ever-growing Drake curse highlight reel?
It really just perfectly highlights that tension, you know, between what we can actually analyze and predict in sports, the stats, the skill, the matchups, and these sort of random, almost superstitious elements the fans just love to latch onto and talk about.
Absolutely.
We're definitely going to see which side comes out on top in the octagon.
We sure are. So Drake's put his money where his mouth is. The internet's buzzing nonstop about the Drake curse. And there are, like you said, real valid questions about Volkanovski's current state after those losses. It just sets the stage perfectly for a really captivating fight night.
Couldn't agree more.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the kind of power we give to these beliefs in sports. Is it all just coincidence lining up neatly with a really good story? Or is there maybe something else, something intangible at play when these high-profile endorsements seem to precede a downfall? What do you make of it all?
Definitely something to chew on long after UFC 314 wraps up.